So we are beginning the month of November, and we began the month by celebrating the Feast of All Saints on November 1st. And it's a beautiful feast for remembering all the saints of the church, all the holy men and women throughout the centuries who have lived virtuous, heroic, virtuous lives. St. Bernard has this really interesting sermon that he gave on All Saints, where he says, well, you could ask the question, why do we honor the saints? It's not like it does them any good, because they're already in heaven and they're enjoying being in the presence of God. So whether we honor them or not makes no difference to them. But what he says is the reason we honor them is not for them, but for us, so that we will be inspired by their witness of heroic faith, of heroic virtue. And the point is that as we remember these saints, we're inspired to try to be like them. I've often said at homilies, especially homilies for funerals of someone who's been particularly holy, and at the time of a funeral, there's a lot of stories, and there's a lot of honoring of the person for their life. But I'll often say that there's a greater honor that we can give a person than just simply speaking about their virtue or their goodness. The greatest honor that we can give someone like that is to actually try to be like them, to see their virtue and their goodness and their holiness, and to say, I really want to be like that. If you ask any child in our school or in our faith formation what the definition of a saint is, they'll tell you, because I told them, that a saint is a sinner who kept on trying. And I didn't come up with that, it was Robert Louis Stevenson, but there's a tremendous, I find that really helpful, because I think, well, if I can just keep on trying, then maybe I can be a saint. And today, if I keep on trying, maybe today I can be a saint. And sometimes we get this idea that the saints are so very far away from us. But the saints weren't perfect. But they persevered, and they persevered in holiness and grace. And if we persevere in the same way and ask God every day of our lives to come into our lives, to decide to follow him every day, then we too can be saints, and we should want that. We should want to be saints and not settle for less than we need to. So we have the Feast of All Saints on November 1st, but we have the Feast of All Souls on November 2nd. And I always say, well, you do the saints and then All Souls is everyone else. And we have this tradition in our Catholic tradition of praying for the dead. And we do believe in purgatory. I wanted to do a little quote for you from our catechism. It says, all who die in God's grace and friendship, but still imperfectly purified, are indeed assured of their eternal salvation. But after death, they undergo purification, so as to achieve the holiness necessary to enter the joy of heaven. And so we believe that even though for many of our brothers and sisters, they're destined to be in heaven, in order to be in heaven and be close to God, we have to be ready for that. And that some of our sins, even our venial sins, can hinder that. And so we need a time of purification. And we believe that by our prayers we can aid that. We can aid that purification. And if you will, and it's a beautiful thought that even for our deceased relatives and friends, we can help them on our way to heaven. It's a beautiful thought. And so the month of November is also traditionally a month to pray for our dead. And during the month of November, there'll be a book at the back of the church, and I encourage you, as you come to Mass or as you're leaving, just to write the names of your relatives and friends who have passed away in that book, and those names will be remembered at our Masses in the month of November.